All right, welcome to today's show. So we're going to jump in real quick and talk about recent moves by Mara, only second to Strategy in terms of acquiring Bitcoin for corporate companies. So we're going to talk about their buying plan coming forward. We're going to talk about what's happening in the marketplace right now with fear of Bitcoin potentially going down further. And also I'm going to shed some light on some good news, of course, but also get into the straight truth of what's actually going on right now. So I hope you're well. And hope things are going well for you personally. So let's jump into what's happening. Okay. So number one, Bitcoin just hit $88,000 and fell to $81,000 in 2 days. So we know this was a bit of a crash. And I'm also going to talk about Strategy. This is news from a little while ago, but we had some insiders at Strategy who sold some stock out, particularly the CFO at a $260 price point. So that was, old news, but interesting to take notice of it. And the question people have is this the start of a crash, or is it a shakeout before we boom back up to the next level? So let's get into Marathon right now. All of you know it as Mara, one of the top Bitcoin mining companies. They just announced that they are selling $2 billion worth of stock to buy more Bitcoin. In case you don't know, they are following the Strategy playbook, and they are second as a corporate buyer to Strategy. Strategy owns 506,000 Bitcoin, and they own about 47,000 Bitcoin. They're doing the exact same thing that Strategy does. It's called an ATM. It just means they sell shares whenever they want, kind of like money from a vending machine, right? They're like, I'm going to issue some shares. The people buy the stock, and they take the stock and they go buy Bitcoin. They're working with banks like Barclays, also the Bank of Montreal as well. So those are the banks that are helping them situate themselves so they could raise more money to buy Bitcoin and run the business. And that's what the CEO is talking about. Last time they did a $1.5 billion stock sale, but they're basically following the exact same strategy playbook, just like GameStop's following the playbook as well. They're raising money, they're buying Bitcoin, and they're holding tight. You might look at this right now and go, hey, there's some players rushing in like GameStop, like Mara. Perhaps they're rushing in to go, hey, we know things are going to go lower, or the price is really good right now, and they want to allocate their positions before we have the run up in 2025, 2026. Okay, so Mara owns about 46,000 of Bitcoin. They are a mining company, but they're still buying more because mining's getting harder and it's getting more expensive. Even though the hash rate is up, meaning the hash rate is the computing power that it takes to solve those really difficult puzzles to mine Bitcoin. And so despite the fact that we've had the halving, the hash rate is up, which is a bullish sign with the miners, but also Mara's looking at this as a mining company to go, hey, it's becoming harder to mine Bitcoin, so we're going to buy Bitcoin by using the Strategy playbook. So buying might be cheaper than mining for them right now, so smart move by them. Now, Strategy, just an inside look at this, 506,000 Bitcoin, around $40 billion worth of Bitcoin they hold. The company's valued at about 84 billion, 90 billion, depending on what the Bitcoin holdings are. Recently, this was probably a couple weeks ago, their CFO sold some stock. I think he sold about $1.5 million worth. He sold it at a $260 price point. I wouldn't put much weight on this. It's worth reporting the news because the fact that if he knew something that we didn't know, he would have waited till the stock went up to 340 to sell, or wait till the stock was at 289 like it was on Friday. So he sold low at 260, but it's worth taking a look at and noting that what are executives in Strategy doing. But the good news on this is that the executives in Strategy own $7.7 billion worth of the stock. So we know that the executives are bullish overall in the Strategy company, which is good news, right? So Bitcoin was on a roll, as you know, it was at 88K. We were starting to go towards, higher highs. And then boom, we dropped about 6.5% in a 48-hour period. And we went down below $82,000. Now, I shared this on yesterday's show, but we'll get to the support levels in a moment, and we'll get a little bit more detailed on this right now. Yesterday, I shared inflation data. The markets don't like that inflation's been up. We know that tariffs are coming. or they've been in place, and we got more news on that April 2nd. The markets don't like that as well, and we don't know what the Fed's going to do in the short term right now. So these fears are keeping the market in uncertainty. I talked a little bit yesterday about the $14 billion of options expiring. I didn't give you the details on the fact that that's only 338 million in liquidations. So the actual money, not the positions, but the actual money was 338 million in liquidations. Still a big amount, and that's part of the reason for the shakiness on Friday. 165 million of those positions were betting that Bitcoin was going to go up, and it didn't. So when leveraged bets go wrong, they get wiped out fast, and that rocks the market. Okay, so let's take a look at the Bitcoin support levels right now. You have Glassnode, which is a top crypto tracker. You can go check out the site. Very, very good data. The charts are there. And basically it says that at $84,000 100 for the Bitcoin price, 40,000 Bitcoin were bought. Okay, so these are the floors where people are buying like crazy. And so they're key Bitcoin floors. So when you look at the support levels, the 84,100 is a support level. 40,000 Bitcoin have been bought there. 82,000 is a key support level. 50,000 Bitcoin have been bought there. And then 80,920 is a key support level. 20,000 Bitcoin have been bought. So that's serious money that's holding the line there. But if we fall below 80, as I said yesterday, next support is 78. Below that, it's 74 and $71,000. All right. So, you know, these support levels are like the conviction zones of where people's conviction lies, because there's a lot of support of Bitcoin that's been bought at those levels. And so if we fall below, you know, we could go down far. And that's the reality of the situation right now. Okay. So part of this has to do with liquidity drying up. And basically what that means is when liquidity is drying up, the market's kind of in a danger zone. We know Bitcoin just came off a 30% correction, so the market feels very sluggish. We've been feeling this for the last couple months. It's trading in this sideways range, and the big money, it's not moving. So here's what the data says. There's not much new money that's coming in. So like the new inflows of capital are actually slowing down. Less Bitcoin is flowing to exchanges. That means fewer people are looking to buy or sell right now. And there's a supply of what's called hot coins, and it means coins that moved in the last week. They've shrunk by more than 50%. The translation on this is simple. Fewer people are trading. So you have more that are sitting on the sidelines right now because of the uncertainty that's taking place in the marketplace. Futures trading is cooling off. Basically, open interest is dropping. What that means is a lot of traders aren't placing big bets right now. So there's not a lot of open contracts right now where people are placing bets and putting contracts in to bet on futures. The option traders, they're paying more attention to the downside, which means that they're looking for, hey, we could potentially be in more pain. So they're kind of hedging their bets right now of the pain that could be ahead. So, but the good news on this is the long-term holders still aren't selling. So if you watched my video yesterday, it's worth going to watch again because it gives you a detailed report on this, that the long-term holders and the whales still are not selling. And so that's good news that institutions, whales, are holding on. They've got it stored in their treasure chest, and they have more certainty for the long term, 2025, 2026, and beyond. Okay. But you look at the markets, they're kind of in pause mode right now, low liquidity, low momentum. Everyone's waiting to see what's going to happen next. Okay. So there is some fear in the marketplace of, like, I just saw somebody post in the chat box of like Bitcoin could go down to 62,000. There is talk about that. Could it happen? Possibly. So we don't know where we're going to go right now. Is it possible that we shoot back up? It's all possible. So I don't think anybody knows in the short term where we're going to go. But I think the best thing to look at is the support levels, because that gives you an indication of where the trend is going as we fall below these support levels. As I'm talking right now, I believe Bitcoin is sitting at around 82,600. We saw a bump above 83,000 last night. So we want it staying with these support levels. Who knows what's going to happen Monday when the market's open? We'll see. The RSI is something I mentioned yesterday as well. I'm going to give you a little bit more data on this right now. It's the relative strength index. Basically, when we're above 70 on the RSI, we're oversold. When we're above 70, we're overbought. When we're below 30, it's oversold on Bitcoin. So we're nowhere near 70 right now. We're in the 40 range. But when you look back in 2017 and 2021, the RSI peaked twice. So meaning we peaked above that 70 range 2 times within a 90 to 120 day period. We just had a recent peak months ago. And so we could have another peak coming in June. So what that basically means is there could be a run in June for Bitcoin and strategy. So we may not have it in April, we may not have it in May, we may have it in June. But again, this is all just speculation based on the past. As I mentioned in yesterday's video, go watch it because it's more about the institutional infrastructure of Bitcoin and how the game has changed. So when we look at the RSI levels in the bull run on 2021 and 2017, that's just giving us past data with an old infrastructure. So it's kind of like one of these feel-good things of this could happen in the future based on old models. But as I said in yesterday's video, Saylor talks about the fact that you can throw out your old models, you can throw out your old graphs because we're in a whole new world and we're in a whole new infrastructure. I did 2 videos yesterday. One showed what Saylor says about the future as well, and he's not concerned at all about liquidation in terms of MicroStrategy going under. He says Bitcoin could go down 99% and we still wouldn't be in problem. And that's because strategy is not leveraged in a big way, and they're not using their Bitcoin as collateral. They're not like leveraging their Bitcoin on top of their current plays. So strategy's in a really good position. And despite articles that say strategy, like, oh, strategy's taking big bets and they're too risky, blah, 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 there's other articles that say the exact opposite. And if you look at the data of strategy and you look at the Bitcoin that they have a very, very sound strategy and they are not over leveraged. So I talked about that in yesterday's video. So the dips are looking scary right now. There's no doubt about that. Retail panics for sure, but the institutions are actually showing promise for the future, and they keep buying. We saw inflows to the ETFs over the past couple weeks, which is always a good sign. And the big players still believe, which is a good sign for the new institutional models, which is what we are in 2025 moving forward. Institutions, big players, whales are the name of the game right now. The SEC's backing off its crypto lawsuits. We've heard this. It's kind of old news. Ripple, Coinbase, Uniswap, Kraken, Gemini, all seeing their cases are dismissed or paused. It was not happening during the previous administration, which was attacking these companies. And now the current administration is obviously friendly. So that's less fear in the marketplace. That's more clarity. And obviously people coming into the space. All right. So if you look at Bitcoin, compared to the rest of the crypto world, so to speak, it's kind of like the stone fortress. It's slow, it's solid, it's harder to crack. But we got, things like Solana and Ethereum. They're kind of like the Wild West of the tech city. They're fast-paced. They're always building. So Ethereum powers most of today's DeFi along with Solana. Lots of stuff's being built on Solana. It's kind of like the newcomer, even though the price is down. But some of these central exchanges have had hacks, so security is obviously very important moving forward for these exchanges. Also, Bitcoin's starting to develop more smart contracts. So when you go to Ethereum and you go Solana, there's lots of building on these apps, or these blockchains, I should say. So there's lots of apps being built on them, and there's lots of use for these blockchains. There's lots of utility on top of them, and there's new building that's happening on the Bitcoin blockchain. Using tools like the Lightning Network, and also Spider Chain is another tool. So bottom line, if you want innovation, you guys go to Solana, you go to Ethereum. If you want safety and scale, Bitcoin's your base on this. All right. So a little report here from the Mag 7. James from Invest Answers just reported on this. So credit goes to where credit is due. He gave a report on this, which I thought was interesting. He said in 2023, the Mag 7 saw a staggering 106% return. So when you look at companies like Tesla, like the Apples of the world, their collective stock prices more than doubled. In 2024, performance slowed down, went to 64% rate of return. And so when you look at this, the S&P 500, which is partly the Mag 7, right? You have the Magnificent 7 that are in there. There's 500 companies that are in the S&P 500. And then you have the other 493 companies. So you got the Mag 7, you got the other 493, that equals 500. And you look at the other 493 companies, it's fascinating to look at. In 2023, those other 493 companies, they did a 4% return. In 2024, they did a 6% return. So the overall S&P 500 index, which includes both the Mag 7 and the other 493 companies, returned 24% in 2023, and in 2024, 23%. So the S&P has done well in the last couple of years. but the weighted average is heavily on the Mag 7. So most of the returns are coming from the top companies. So it's kind of like, hey, if you know the top companies are doing well, obviously I'd be looking more in that direction. Not financial advice, not tax advice, not legal advice on the show at all, but that's the basic idea. So if we zoom out a little bit and we look at the last year or so, Bitcoin is at a 3x from the last year. So that's big. I remember back in 2023, or was it 2024? 2023 in November, I bought some more when Bitcoin was at 30,000. And so, we're kind of at a 2.7x from then. And so we've seen some good ROI if you got in early, but obviously there's people that got in much later and they're waiting to recover their gains. So that's the basic gist of what's going on. I want to give you kind of a little action-packed show today on what's happening in the marketplace. I think it's interesting to see what's going on. It's obviously not the place we want to be. Nobody wants to be in this chop sideways place. And it's obviously not a typical bull run that we're experiencing, as we all know from the indicators of what's happening. So drop in the comment box what you think's going on. I see Mike says that 62,000. I don't think I can take 62,000. I get it. Hear you on that, Mike. And let's see what happens tomorrow. We have these tariffs coming April 2nd. So, or more news on what Trump's going to do and what the other countries are going to do. So we'll see what happens. I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty this week. I think there might be a swing downwards more, particularly when the markets open tomorrow, but I don't know. So not financial advice, not tax advice. But it is Meta Girls, like, it's a bummer. Yeah, it's a bummer where we are at right now, where compared to where we expect to be. So let's focus on the good news and the infrastructure for 2025, 2026. And let's hang in there. Okay. It's not tax advice, not financial advice, not legal advice. You got to make your own decisions on this. But anybody who's invested new money recently, I invested new money in about 3 weeks ago. And so, the new money's down, but overall I've been in this game for, 7 years now. So anyway, overall my portfolio is doing great. But I understand with new money, it sucks to see it go down. And if you're in that situation, I empathize, and I'm hoping for a great 2025 and 2026. And in my knowing, I believe we are going to have a great 2025 and a great 2026. And we will wait and see. So hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, and hope this helps. And I'll see you on the other side.